Hey guys, Emily Muccianti here, and in today's video, we're going to talk about three specific challenges for our middle school readers. But first, remember to like, subscribe, and share. And if you are a middle school educator and you are looking for support and a framework for middle school intervention, please stick around because I have a course for middle school interventionists called Reading Reset, a middle school framework for intervention. Make sure you visit my website, get on my list. We are launching our beta this June and it will be live for everybody in July of 2025. Now, let's get back to this. First of all, your middle school students are not just big elementary kids. These students have additional and unique demands that they didn't have in elementary school. First of all, there is major shifts in brain development happening with our middle schoolers. And as you know, if you are in the middle school space, it's a little bit crazy. That is huge for these kids. We also have some serious increased content area learning demands. These kids are going from one teacher into 5 and 7. That can be exceptionally difficult for them. And then finally, for our struggling readers in particular, there are major gaps in academic language and vocabulary that we absolutely have to address. So keep in mind that these kids are not just falling apart because it is a lack of effort or some negative behaviors. In fact, you'll see that when we can get our middle schoolers back on track, those negative behaviors and lack of effort will decrease. You will get a more engaged and positive learner, and that is what we are after. The brain development, let's talk about this because this is huge. We know that the middle school brain is going through a phase of pruning. I'm not joking. They are actually the brain is actually pruning off the areas, the dendrites, the connections that it used and relied on in its infancy and toddler years. It no longer needs those little brain pieces, so it is pruning off what it no longer needs for adulthood to get ready and make space. It's literally called pruning. So this area or this physical change that is happening really does cause some executive functioning challenges. We know that we've got attention issues with many of our middle schoolers. It is exacerbated by this phase. We know that the organization, that the skills in organizing our students, their schoolwork, their any social demands, those types of things are very, very challenging. It's because of this pruning. The working memory is going to be impacted by this. So, when you talk to your kids and you say something and 5 minutes later they look at you like they've never heard it, it's legit. And it always can come back to that physical action of actually pruning. I raised two sons. Thankfully, they are now in their 20s, and I used to jokingly and lovingly tell them, I'll forgive you because your brain is not fully developed yet. And it is true. Another issue with the brain development that is impacted is emotional regulation and identity development. We know that all of these things, especially in today's age, seems to be adding some additional challenges, fears with our students. And so we get kids that may shut down. They might avoid risk. They might isolate. And those aren't good things. We need to actually help bring them back out. The one thing I remember being in meetings with parents, when you think that you have gone through the elementary years successfully and your student is moving into middle school, you might think, well, now they can use some independence. They're middle schoolers. And I'm going to tell you, stop. If you're a parent of a middle schooler, stop right there. Middle school years are the years where students need more structure and more parent involvement and adult involvement than they ever do. This is a very, very sensitive type. It can be a little bit, these kids are very vulnerable to a lot of societal implications. You've got to be present. More adult interaction and guidance is absolutely crucial during this time. Now, the second area that is really causing some issues for our kids is that explosion of the cognitive load. We know that our kids are going from having one teacher, maybe two in elementary school, to 5, 6, even 7 teachers. And that is challenging. Now you've got a different teacher for every subject. Each subject has its own format, its own expectation, its own vocabulary. These kids have to remember the personalities and how to deal with all of these adults. Now, this is important for adulthood, right? This is necessary to function in society. But that transition period during middle school makes it very, very challenging. The text that they are reading becomes more technical. They're science books, they're history books, they're math books, and there is less scaffolding and support with the textbook and even in the classes at this point. So they are going through this time where we need to come in and still support them through this. We know that reading is now no longer isolated to ELA or just an English class. It is absolutely critical for their success in all of their content areas. The final area is that academic language gap. In intervention, we tend to think or maybe focus on the decoding. And in elementary school, particularly primary school, that is really a very important piece. But by middle school, what we're working with is not just giving our students the decoding support, especially for multisyllabic words, but we also have to engage with the vocabulary. We're now extending tier 2, tier 3 academic vocabulary, content specific vocabulary. There's a lot of great resources out there, but there's also some things routine wise and things that we can share with our content area teachers so that they can do those in their own classes. We know that our struggling readers also miss out on some content area learning, and this can lead to the snowballing gaps. So we want to make sure that we are there to fill those gaps. And we have to address multi-meaning vocabulary words that are going to impact those students on tests. Our academic language, our tier 2 vocabulary words particularly, are the language and the words that they will see on tests. This became really apparent to me when I was teaching middle school and I was giving an exam, and one of my students pulled me over. She looked at me with these big innocent eyes and had me read a question that she was struggling with. And the question said something like, draw a conclusion about whatever it was that she was reading. And she looked at me and said, I don't know how to draw that. And it was in that moment that I realized, holy moly, I had just taken for granted that she understood that that was more of an abstract meaning, also not just physically drawing. We have got to make that type of vocabulary instruction paramount in our middle school intervention programs. So what can we as educators in middle school do? There's a few things that you need to remember. First of all, structured literacy is still paramount. We have to provide a great deal of structure. This has to, though, be tailored for our adolescent readers and not just same stuff that we were doing with our elementary students. These are different creatures. We have to deal with them differently, but they still need and require structure, structured literacy, explicit instruction, vocabulary routines will build a strong foundation that they can then use in their content area classes. So intervention models in middle school become a little bit challenging or a lot challenging. We are trying to fit skill-based instruction into a master schedule that is already really, really full. So how do we do that? That is one of the biggest reasons that I created my Reading Reset for Middle School course. It is a requirement for us to think outside of the box of how we can actually embed this important information and instruction for these students. And that collaboration across the content areas is also really required. So here's what I would like you to do. I would love for you to jump over to my website, emilymuccianti.com, or just click the link down below and join our waitlist for the Reading Reset course, a framework for middle school intervention. Middle school is unique. We have to approach it uniquely. It is more than just a new strategy. If you are developing your intervention programs in middle school with a variety of strategies and you're not looking at the system, you're going to hit some roadblocks. This course is all about helping you see the system, seeing it from a broad perspective so that you can actually work with your team at your school to support those struggling and most vulnerable readers during these important years. All right. I hope this video was helpful. Drop me a comment. What are some of your pain points as a middle school educator? What are you struggling with? There's a lot of them. If we sat down over coffee, I could tell you some serious stories. The greatest 10 years of my life, I think, were spent in middle school. So for all of you middle school teachers out there, I know you're a little bit crazy. Thank you for what you do. Bye for now.